Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spreadsheet Basics for Nonprofits. My name is Tara McQuinney, and I'm a postdoctoral fellow with the Charity Insights Canada project, what we like to call CICP. And today's lesson is part of a series of data literacy trainings that we're providing through our Community Education Center. And this is the first one for how to use Excel and Google Sheets when working with data. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. The session is designed to be interactive, so if you'd like to follow along, go to our resources for Webinar 2 on our Community Education Center and download either the Excel DIY workbook or the Google Sheets DIY workbook, and then you can practice the lessons as we go through. We've designed this so that each lesson is a new sheet in the workbook, and I'll explain what I mean by sheets later on, but we'll be going along together using different tabs at the bottom of the workbook. And you can pause the video after each lesson so that there's exercises and you can practice doing those yourself. And make sure to check out afterwards, if you haven't done so already, our extra resources and tip sheets for both Excel and Google Sheets. There are lots of videos in the resource list which cover things that we're learning today, but also things that you can build upon what we're learning. And the tip sheets have very detailed instructions on everything that we're going through in today's lessons. So if you feel intimidated by spreadsheets, that is completely normal. Today isn't about learning really advanced tricks. We're just learning the basics, and it's really designed for beginners. There are many beginners that are already using Excel and Google Sheets, and just learning a few tools and tricks, you can handle most of the needs of data storage and analysis for nonprofits and charities. So learning these today can help build your confidence in working with data. And if you can type and click, then you're ready to start for today's lesson. Okay, so I'm just going to share, I'm going to be switching back and forth between Google Sheets and Excel. We'll start off in Google Sheets. And if there is, I'll switch back and forth when there's differences. Most of the things that we're learning today are exactly the same. But when there are a few differences, I will switch over and explain those. So here we have our workbook open. And if you go to the first sheet, and what I'll explain by sheets is if you look along the bottom of the workbook, we see these different tabs. And this is the same in Excel, and you can click, and these have the names of our different lessons. So these are different sheets inside the workbook, or what might be called a workbook can also be called a spreadsheet. So the spreadsheet or workbook is the file, and the sheets are the different pages inside the file. Now, when we look at this, we'll see that first off that we have this large grid here. And if we look across the top, we see letters A, B, C. These are different columns. If I click up where the letter is, that highlights the whole column. So that's column A. And then along the side, we have the different rows, which are labeled with numbers. So we see here that this is row 2. Now, when you click on a cell, that's what we call the individual boxes here inside the grid. So each cell is labeled with first the column letter and then the row name. And you can see up here on the left in the name box, it says A1 when I click here, and C4 if I click here. So it actually provides, when we're working with formulas, having these labels for the different cells really makes for being able to do a lot of things with different formulas inside here. And today we're just going to go over some very simple formulas. So you'll see how that works. There's also another terminology to learn is a range. So a range is a grouping of cells. And if I highlight here, we can see in our name box that the range is identified by the first cell in the top left-hand corner, and then the cell in the bottom right-hand corner. And that's separated by a colon, so that means range. So B3 down here to F12. And the other thing that we'll see right above the grid lines is our formula bar. Now the formula bar shows you what's inside of cells. So if I was to click over here where I have my little notes written, you can see it says Sheets and Spreadsheets is written up here. It's called a formula bar because if you had put in a formula to do a calculation, the calculation would be displayed here in the table here, but you will see the formula itself up in the formula bar. And so you'll get to see that when we're working with formulas near the end. The other thing is that on both Google Sheets and Excel, you can scroll up and down and side to side, and that's helpful if you have very big tables and you need to move around to see what's happening. You can also zoom in and out. On Google Sheets, the zoom is up here, and you can choose from any of these, or you can type in what percentage exactly you want to zoom from. I'll just switch over to Excel for a moment because that looks a little bit differently in Excel. So in Excel, our zoom is in the bottom right-hand corner, and we can zoom in and out using that there. And the last thing that I wanted to note, and this looks very different, this one looks very different in Excel and in Google Sheets, but in each we have a series of menus, tabs, and drop-downs that help us to access the different tools that we can use. And in Excel, we have these tabs across the top. We can see File, Home, Insert. If I click on any of these, it changes this whole ribbon down below, so that offers lots of different options for each of these tabs. And you'll see here, sometimes if you see a little arrow, we call these launcher tabs. And if you click on there, it's going to open a box that you can move around with even more options happening in here. So don't get intimidated by all the different options. There are quite a few in Excel, and also Google Sheets, more in Excel. But it's not about knowing exactly what everything does. I've been working with data for a long time, and using Excel, and I don't use the majority of what's in there. So it's just about learning a few steps at a time and where to find what you need to be able to do that. Now I'll switch back over to Google Sheets because this looks a little bit different here. So they have a set ribbon. So this ribbon never changes. When we click up here on the tabs, we get these launch down menus that give us more options and expand out as well. So we'll be using a few different ones of those today, but just to know that that looks a little bit differently. And most of the stuff in the ribbon for Google Sheets is to do with formatting, but there's also a bit around functions and filters that we will be using today as well. Okay, so if you want to, you can pause the video now and just click around and maybe zoom in and out or up and down to get a sense for that. We're going to move to our next lesson. And the way we're going to do that is, well, our first lesson that we're going to have an exercise for is I'm going to move to the next tab over in the bottom called Enter Data. So we're going to the next sheet. And most of this is very similar. Well, there's only a few differences in how this looks, but it's basically for this lesson, it's the same in Excel and in Google Sheets. So entering data, the first thing to understand is that there's this select to effect and a select handle. So that means that when I click on things, that's when I can do something with it. So select to effect, and the select handle, you can see as I'm moving around, I have this white arrow. In Excel, it's a white cross, but it's the same thing, right? If I want to do something in one of these cells, I need to click on it. So here we have a little table, and in each exercise, you're going to have a table where you will be working on the table on the left when you do your exercises. And on the right, I have some little point forms about, different things that I'm talking about and things to remind you. And then below that, there'll be an exercise for you to try out. But for now, you can just watch. I'm going to run through this, and then you can try it out yourself. So to enter, so we select to effect. Let's say we have this table that we're filling out, and right here we want to add in ID numbers, and we're going to just start with 1 and work consecutively. So here I would select here, I want to put in a 2. And then after I type something in, when I hit enter, the box is going to jump down. Okay, and that's the same. I can do that again, 3, enter. But let's say I'm working across the top and I want to put in headers. So I already have ID and name. I'm going to put in program here. Now, if I hit enter, it's just going to go down. The box is going to go down again, but I'm working across. So another thing you can do is you can hit tab instead of enter, and that will take you across. You can also, if you type in, you can also use program again. You can also use the arrow. So I could use the arrow right, up, down, or left to move on to the next part of the spreadsheet. All right, and the next thing that I want to teach you is that there is there's a difference between clicking on a cell and clicking in a cell. So what do we mean by that? Well, did you see before when I rewrote program, when I first wrote the P, it erased everything inside. So I can't edit using that's clicking on a cell, and it's going to erase, and I have to rewrite everything. But let's say down here for this, someone wrote out wellness workshop, and there's 2 P's on the end, and we just want to edit that 1 P and not have to write it all out. This can come in handy if there's a lot written in there and you don't want to start writing it off again. So if you double click on it, instead of just 1 click, we come up and we double click. That gets you in the cell, and then we can edit that P in there. The other thing I can do, we can see here, we have double P's here. The other thing you can do instead of clicking in the cell is I can simply go up to the formula bar, and when I click on that, then I can edit there as well. So clicking on a cell and clicking in a cell. Now we can delete the contents of a cell simply, or arrange simply by when we select it and then we hit delete on our keyboard, and that clears the contents of what's in that cell. Now say that was a mistake. There is a really handy keyboard trick. Control Z is undo. Now in Google Sheets, we also have undo up here. And in Excel, you can add it to your ribbon, but just a really quick Control Z. And that might be Command Z if you're using a Mac, it would be Command Z. And then Control Y is redo. So quick little keyboard shortcuts for you there. And then the final thing about entering data is that Excel and Google Sheets are both very smart, and they try to help you do things. So say I have wellness workshop and I have to copy that down like 5 or 6 times because I know that that's what's coming up. If I go here, there's such a thing called a fill handle. Now in Google Sheets, it's going to be a little blue dot in the right-hand corner when you select a cell. And in Excel, it's going to be a green box. But if I pick up that fill handle and I click on it and I hold and drag down, we can see where it's going to. It's going to fill in exactly what's in there. The other really neat thing that it does as well is that it can recognize patterns if you give it enough information. So because I've gone 1, 2, 3 here, say I had to fill in IDs for like 100 or 150. Well, that's going to take a lot of time. But if I highlight, you just select and then hold down and drag to highlight this little range here, you still have that fill handle. And because I have 1, 2, 3 in there, it recognized the pattern that I just want to keep going with those numbers. You can also, you can do other patterns like 10, 20, 30, 40. If you gave it 10, 20, 30, gave it enough to know what's going on. It can also do dates as well, if that's helpful. All right, so if you want to just pause the video now and give that exercise a try. And I'm going to go on to the next lesson. So we're going to move down here and we're going to go to cut and copy paste. And I'm actually going to switch over. There's one little difference here in Excel and in Google Sheets. So I'll switch over when that comes up. And if you work with Microsoft Word or other document programs, you've probably seen these shortcuts, or you have an idea of what cut, copy, and paste does. So that works exactly the same in Excel and in Google Sheets, is that I can go here. So say I get this table and for some reason they've started the next column down here and we want to put it up at the end of this table. So if I again select this whole range, click and drag down until I have that range, and then I want to cut this. So I could hit Control X on my keyboard. You can also, if you don't like using the shortcuts, the minute you right click on what you've selected, it's going to give you a range of stuff, and cut, copy, and paste will be the first one. So I hit cut, and then I come where I want the beginning of that to go, and then I hit paste. So I can either hit Control V, or I could have right clicked on this cell and hit paste. So here we have participants served now added to the end of the column. Now, if you select something and you hit, this time we'll do copy, but let's say we've made an incorrect selection. So now the way you can tell is that you have something set to be cut or copy or paste is that it has these green, in Excel it's green lines, and in Google Sheets it's these blue dotted lines. If I hit escape, that takes away those lines. So just like Control Z undoes something, escape is also a good thing to have when you've selected something, and it's also good, we'll see when doing formulas as well. So your little escape hatch. All right, so now let's say we wanted to insert, well, we don't really want participants served here, we want it over here, and we need to insert a column. So this is where Excel and Google Sheets are a little bit different. But if I came here, I want to put the column right here. And I select the whole column and I right click again to open this box. Google Sheets actually gives me the option. It says, okay, do you want this new column to go to the left of the one you've selected or to go to the right? Now, I will jump over to Excel for a moment here. Because in Excel, when I select a column and I right click and I hit insert, it's always going to insert to the left. So, oh, that's not where I want it. Now I can simply, and you can do this in Google Sheets, if you come up, when you see the black arrow on the column, you can right click again and you can hit delete. So that's how you insert and delete a column. You can also do the same, and we can insert a row. Again, Google Sheets gives you the option of above or below your selection. Excel, it's going to go above your selection. And I can simply come back here to where the number 4 is on the side, and I have that row selected, and I can simply delete it there. Or I could have hit Control Z as well to undo my last action. Okay, so on Google Sheets, what you can do is you can insert a column and then move this simply by cutting and pasting. So we can do that in Excel too. So let's see, we insert, and we can do this in Google Sheets as well. Now we used the cut before. Another thing you can use in both of these is if you have your range selected, when you hover over the border, you're going to see your select handle change. So here it's a cross, and in Google Sheets it's an arrow. When you hover over the border, you're going to see in Google Sheets a little hand. And here we have 4 arrows, and that's called our move handle. So it's called our move handle because we can pick up what we have selected, and it's going to show you where it's going to go, and we can simply insert it here. And if your column's not the right size, you can move it up here where the letters are by clicking on the border there. You can also double click to automatically get it to the right size. So you can do that in Sheets as well. But another thing that we can do, and I'm just going to use Control Z a few times here. There we go. Another thing that I can do, and this is only in Excel, but this is a neat little trick, is if I have selected this and I go cut. Now remember, we always go to the left. So I'll select this column because, and right click, it's going to give you an option now because you have something selected to cut, it's going to say insert cut cells. And that's really useful. Yes, we want everything to go to the right. So that's rather, it saves one step of adding in the column there. Now, it's very important to remember that if we are moving things around, whether cutting and pasting or using the move handle, if you move this, if I was to move this where there was already something written, well, Excel is going to give me a warning, but it does overwrite. So if you're cutting and pasting and you're not inserting, using that insert function or inserting a column so it's blank, it's going to write over what you have done, what you have there. So that's important to know. All right, so if you want to pause again and try the lesson, you can even do more. I only have 3 things in this exercise, but feel free to, to play around with things and have some fun and try moving stuff around. Okay, and then we're going to move to the next lesson, which is formatting. Now for this, I don't have an exercise. I'm just going to show you a bit about what you can do when it comes to formatting. And formatting can be a little bit different in Google Sheets and Excel, but we actually have extra resources. We have videos specifically on formatting in both these platforms in the resource list. So check those out too. But just to say that that in both Google Sheets, I'll show you a little bit in Google Sheets, but just we'll start in Excel. So in Excel, you can change, we can change the font. What type of font do we want? And we can pick a lot of different fonts. I would just say that it's good to use you want things to be readable. So I tend to stick with the default font here, but we can also change font size. Okay, and so whatever I have selected, maybe I just want to change the size of the headers. Whatever I have selected, when I go up here, it's going to change it. So yeah, so I like to stick with this font, but you can also do things like you can bold and italicize as well. And that trick I was showing you, if you select is the columns, you can change the size of columns and rows. We don't tend to change the size of rows as much, but you can do that. And just to get that back to normal, I'll double click to make it fit the contents of the cell. But in an easier way to change all of these header rows is when I go up here to where it's the column letter A and I see that black arrow and I click and I drag across. So I've highlighted all of these. Now I can double click on any of these borders between the columns and it's going to apply that fit contents to everything that's in there. The other thing that's good is that here, I'm just going to left align these. You can center your headers, but alignment. So you'll notice when you're using Google Sheets or Excel, when you start inputting into cells, what it reads as text, it's going to align to the left. And what it reads as numbers, it's going to align to the right. And that's actually a pretty good, it makes spreadsheets easier to read. So I wouldn't do more than, you could even have your headers aligned to the left or you could have them centered. But for readability, it's nice to have, the text on the left and the numbers on the right. The other thing is that there's lots of formatting that you can do as per the numbers as well and dates. You can use different formats for dates. In Excel, I'll switch over to Google in a second, but in Excel, we can go here, we can highlight just this, or we can highlight the whole column as well. And I right click and I go to format cells. These options are also up in the ribbons, but the easiest way is to right click. And when I go to number actually means you can pick, is it number, is it text? Well, I'm going to say it's currency, but I only want 2 decimal places. And then I hit OK. And look, and I can do the same for the next column, but yeah, it's changed that formatting. So like I said, there's lots of different formatting options and there's videos in the resources where you can learn how to do some of those different things. So now I'm just going to switch over for a second back to Google Sheets. We'll get us on formatting. So in Google Sheets, a lot of your formatting stuff happens up here. So up here we have text font, which we see default, but we see some other options here. Text size, again, the bold, the italics. And when it comes to formatting, you need to go up here to format. And again, it says number, but it will give you plain text and a bunch of different stuff as well. So we can, again, go for currency. And up here, you have decreased decimal places. So in Excel, you did that right in the format box, but here you can do that here easily because we didn't have anything. We had nice round numbers there. So we can change the decimal place that way. And the last thing that I'll show you is that in both Google Sheets and Excel, you can format to table, and then you get, I'm just gonna extend these out. So in Google Sheets, we can go, if we highlight everything, if I highlight everything, look, it already gives me this convert to table. If you don't see that, you can go up to format and there's convert to table. And also it tells you the shortcut Control-Alt-T. Now, so we convert to table and there's a resource on what you can do. It's actually, I think it's good practice to have your tables formatted. It helps down the road when you're using formulas and just updating formats and stuff automatically when you're adding new rows or columns. It makes things a little bit easier. In Excel, you can format to table. I'll show you. There is a trick actually, and I could have done this with Google Sheets as well. If I hit Control A, it highlights. If I'm selected something in this table, I hit Control A, it's going to select everything unless there's like a space near here. It'll catch everything. And then in Excel, I simply hit Control T. Where's your data? My table has headers. Yeah, so that all looks good. And then you're going to see in Excel, when you click on the table, a new table design ribbon will come up where you can change that. All right, so that's a little bit about some of the basics of formatting, and do check out the resources if you want more tips and tricks on that. So we're just going to go to the next lesson, but feel free if you want to pause the video again and try out some of that formatting. And we will go to our sort lesson. So sorting is a little bit easier, I find, in Excel than in Google Sheets. Now, I don't have this formatted as a table. I will show you afterwards what happens when you have it formatted as a table. Sorting and even filtering our next lesson are so much easier. But Excel's pretty smart. Like if I click anywhere in here, it's already reading this as a table. And say I wanted to sort by program, okay? Because I want to see, I want to see them in alphabetical order and grouped together. So sorting arranges your data in a specific order. We can base sorting, we can have on one column or multiple columns. So we can say sort by this one first and next by this one, and you're going to try that out in the lesson. But here I just click anywhere and I go to sort and filter. And if I hit sort, it's going to sort by program because I'm clicked on the program column. And I can do that, and look, my headers are still here. It's grouped by program, and that's great. I'm just going to Control Z, so it's automatically doing a lot of things for me. Now, if I go over to Google Sheets, I found that this one doesn't work as intuitively, because if I go to program and in Google Sheets, it's under data, Sort sheet, great. So it's saying sort sheet by column A from A to Z. Yep, that's what I want. But now my headers have disappeared. They've gone down here. So it hasn't read that I have headers. I'm going to hit Control Z. So instead, we can use that Control A. We can click anywhere in this table, hit Control A. And this time, we're going to go to Data. And we can do Sort Range. So sort range by column A to Z, but let's go to Advanced Range Sorting Options. And you can click My Data Has Header. And the minute you click that, you start to see your different headers in here. And so this is where we can do all sorts of stuff with sorting in Google Sheets. So we can say, well, yeah, we want to sort by program, but we can also go in here and add another sort column. So let's say we want to do by donation amount. Now it still says A to Z, but that should be least to largest. So we want to sort by that. And you can delete if you've added one that you don't want. And then when we do that, look, our headers are still here. We have everything sorted by program, and we have it by least to greatest in donation amount for each of the sections. Now, I'll just switch back again to Excel. So Excel, we saw that to sort by one column was fairly simple. If we want to do a more complicated sort, so we go to sort and filter, and instead of just choosing one of these options, if we go to custom sort, we see this, which is similar to what we were just doing in the advanced sorting in Google Sheets. But we can say, okay, it automatically clicks my data has headers. So that should be on, but just check to make sure. And you'll know because if you don't have this clicked, it's going to say column A, B, C, D. So once we have this clicked, it shows us our program. So it shows us our headers. And so we want to sort by program first, and then we just add a level. We can delete levels too. And we want to go by donation amount, smallest to largest. Great. We could go largest to smallest. And we click OK, and we're going to get the same results that we did before. So go ahead and give that a try. And then when you come back, I'm going to show you, I'm just going to go ahead and show what happens with when we convert this to a table. So we did learn that converting to a table in Excel, if we go Control A and then just easy Control T, my table has headers, everything's being selected, that's good. And I hit OK. Now you can change your format up here if you don't like this, but for now we'll just go with the default. Okay, and so what happens when we format is that by table, we automatically get what are called filter buttons up here. Okay, so we can filter, and we'll do filter next, but we can also sort. We can easily sort by columns as well. So that, and then going across, so that makes it a little bit easier if you're using a table. And the same thing for Google Sheets. Now with Google Sheets, the tables, let's see. So we will go and we will select everything. And then we can use this one this time. If you use this one instead of, you notice before when I converted to a table and I used the format up here, went to convert to table here, it was a little less dynamic. So this can bring up a lot in Google Sheets. You'll see in the resources there are ways to turn these to change what these do. So basically Google Sheets tries to give you drop-down lists. It tries to guess what you might want in each of these columns. So it's saying, look, we only have these regions in here and these different funding types, and you can add to these lists or delete them, or you can turn them off as well. But I'll let you check that out in the extra resources. But just to say that, you know, converting by a table, and if I went here and I said format, convert to table, this one's not as, you know, doesn't add all those extra features when you do it that way. Yeah, Yeah, so this also has filter, and we're gonna just jump. So if you want to try converting to table and see what that looks like, I'm just gonna jump over to filter, and we're gonna learn how to do this. This is actually easier, even if it's not in Excel and Google Sheets, even if it's not formatted as a table. We can click anywhere in our table, and we go to create a filter, and what we see here, these little lines, these are filter buttons. So those were the same ones that we saw when we were, converting to table. We saw filter buttons. So if I wanted to, so filtering means that, say I just wanted to see this, say this list is really, really long, and I got asked to give information on all of the grants and funding for the food security program. So I have my filters on, and then I come here and I click on one and I go, okay, well, it says here displaying 5, right? So it's showing all the 5 that are in there. I'm just going to clear that, and I'm going to choose just food security. And then when you hit OK, now don't worry, your lesson plan dropped away, but that's fine. This is easy to undo. Now I'm seeing just food security, but if you look at the numbers across, the rows aren't gone. They're just hidden. All right, and you can easily turn this off you can remove the filter by clicking the filter button again, and then you can turn on clear. Let's filter by community health. Okay. And then we can clear that as well. Okay, so, and it's pretty simple as well in Excel. The same thing happens if we go here, except we need to go to where it says sort and filter, and just we click on our filter button, and then we get we can select community health. Okay, and you can go up here to clear filter. You should be able to do that here as well. Yeah, you can clear the filter there as well. So give that a try, give the filtering a try. And oh yes, in Excel, if we want to turn off our filter buttons, if you don't want them up there because they're kind of hiding the words, if we're done, we can just go back and click the filter button again, and that disappears. So go ahead and give that a try, and try it with or without the formatted table as well. Okay, so our next lesson is on formulas. So both Excel and Google Sheets can act like a calculator. And so there is a difference. We're going to learn about functions next, but if you think about formulas, think back to your math class and like the brackets and the plus, minus, divide. So formulas. And there's a lot you can do with formulas, but you don't need to learn really complicated formulas in order to be able to do some tasks that'll make things easier for you. So say you were given this table, and it has the annual budget for programs and what's been spent so far, and how many participants have been served. And you've been asked to calculate, okay, what is the remaining budget for each of the programs? And what's the average cost per participant so far in running the program? So we can do that because we have the number of participants served and how much we have spent. But for let's start with remaining budget. So I'm going to go up here and click in the first cell here. And anytime you start a formula or function in Google Sheets or Excel, this works exactly the same, is that you use the equal sign. And now it says, okay, now I know that you're going to put in a formula. I could simply type in my formula because remember, we know the names of the cells. So annual budget, if we want to take for community outreach and minus the amount spent from the annual budget, it would be C2 minus D2. So I can type that in, C2 minus D2. I can simply type that in and it shows you which ones it's doing, and I can hit enter. The other thing I can do is I'm going to hit equals and do this for the next one, is that it's really great, makes it easier, is that I can, once I have the equal sign, I can click here and it's going to write it in for me. So part of it, C3, now I want minus, so that's the dash, and I want it to, and then I click here because I want it to do that one, and then I hit enter. So we do hit enter, and that's great. But we also, and I should say, like, add is plus, multiply is star, and divide is this slash here. And you can do formulas that are a little more complicated if you use, the brackets and put something in the brackets. So but you start with the equal sign. Now we can also use our fill handle for this. So Excel's pretty smart, and so is Google Sheets, that if we come here and we copy down using our fill handle, it knows that for each row we want to do the same thing. So it's going to change, and you can see here in our formula bar, it's showing the formula, not the results. C4 minus D4, right? And if we go down, C5 minus D5. So it's done that automatically for us. All right, so you're going to be trying that out for your exercise, but also I'll just show you for cost per participant. So we wanted to do equals amount spent slash, I'm going to do slash divided for divide by participants served, and then I hit enter. And here again, I'm getting the cost per participant. And if I pull that down, and we could then format this if we want this in number format as well. So give those two a try, and using the fill handle as well. And then I'm just going to demonstrate what we mean by functions. Maybe I'll just switch over to Google Sheets again for this one. Okay, just to let you know that this kind of stuff works the same in both of them. So functions are really useful. There's a lot of functions that work in Excel and Google Sheets. But just knowing, even just learning a few today, a couple today, and then building on that as you grow more confidence. One thing I like to do is kind of, go on the internet and ask, like, how do I do this? If you're trying to figure out if there's a faster way to do something, there's usually a function to do that. You might get a lot of different answers. There's probably multiple ways, and it might not always be the simplest, but it's kind of fun once you've sort of built a foundation to see if there's a way to kind of speed up the work that you're doing. But for today, I just want to show you how functions work very simply, and two of the most common ones that are used are sum, so to sum up a column or row or range of numbers, and average to average out a column or row. So in both Google Sheets and Excel, the way we do this, now I can come down here, let's say we're now asked, okay, what's our total remaining budget? So if I come down here, and again, I start with equals, but this time I start typing in sum. Now you can see once I start typing in, Google Sheets actually doesn't, it's already guessing what I want to do, right? And if that works, that's great. Like, you can just hit tab or enter, and you're going to have your total here. But let's say, and we can see here, so what we see here is that it says the sum of F2, remember our range, F2 to F11. So F2 to F11. So that's the range inside the brackets that it's going to sum up. But let's say the spreadsheet was really long, and so we wanted to be able to see our total up here somewhere. So maybe we have a little box of totals up here. So equals sum. Well, now it's not going to be guessing. Now I can hit tab to finish this off, or I can just type the equals sum bracket. You need the bracket before you put in the range. And then, like I did with formulas, once I get to this point, I can select. Okay, I can select the range. I need another bracket at the end. And I hit enter. Now it's giving me all these autofill suggestions that I do not want because they don't make any sense. So we will just click that there. There is also functions button up here where we can get common functions, which is great. Pick our range, and we don't even have to do the brackets, so that's lovely. And then I'm just going to show you in Excel, because Excel has an auto sum as well. So like before, we could have gone in here and typed it and then picked the range. But if we go up here to auto sum, look, it's already guessing as well. So if that works, then we simply hit enter. Oh, sorry, we're supposed to be over here on functions. Let's do that again. It's because we had the answers on the last one. So there you go, auto sum. We hit enter because it looks good. And now if we're going to do average, so we can type in equals average, and as no, it hasn't given it to me yet, average. Once I get to this point, it's the highlighted one. I can hit tab and get myself there. So I don't have to type it all out. I select my range, again, a bracket in the end, and I hit enter as well. So auto sum, there's the average is also up there, min, max, so some of the more common ones and some other functions, just to make things a little bit easier. Again, you could do it that way. So go ahead and give that a try. Try doing sum and average for both of these totals. Okay. Well, I just want to thank everyone. I'm just going to flip back here for a second. Oh, sorry. So I hope that you've had fun today doing this and working with it. And do, you know, if something didn't work out, then you can always download the workbook again if you want to start afresh and give a specific lesson a try, jump around in the video. But we will be doing this may have already passed by the time you watch this video, but we're also doing, and we'll be recording this level up skills for Excel and Google Sheets, where we go over XLOOKUP, VLOOKUP, one way to deal, talking about duplicates and showing one way to do that. Very much the basics of XLOOKUP and VLOOKUP. So again, if you've gone through today and you feel comfortable working in the spreadsheet, please check out that webinar as well, where we will also be discussing some best practices for working with spreadsheets. And we'll be covering a lot of other topics this year as well. We have a webinar coming up on how to read survey reports and using CICP data, read and use in your work, one on data visualization and data storytelling, and potentially more topics as well. All right. So thank you very much.